News fades fast. If you or your town was not directly impacted by Sandy, it is probably just a distant memory. These clips, captured from the TV set the day after the storm, might refresh your memory as to its severity.
And waves higher than 40 feet.
The board is crippled tonight. Millions of viewers cannot see this broadcast because they're heading into another night in the dark. A huge area of the country on its knees where life has ground to a halt because of this one storm. The death toll is now at least 40. The biggest city in the country has been staggered. Power is out for more than 8 million homes and businesses, and that's an early lowball estimate across 15 states. An early guess at the cost of this storm would begin at $50 billion in damage and lost business. And the map of the Atlantic coastline, especially the Jersey Shore, has been simply redrawn in some areas.
Entire communities swamped, houses ripped from their foundations. The beach erosion caused by the relentless surf so profound, it rearranged the Jersey Shore. Across the state, 2.4 million customers, 60% of the population, have no power. And the worst of it was probably right along the coast, in towns like Point Pleasant Beach. The town sits behind a huge line of sand dunes built to protect it. But last night, it was no match for the power of Hurricane Sandy. It overwhelmed the barriers and sent torrents of water and sand rushing into the town. Wow.
The shape of the jet stream is influenced by the temperature difference between the warm atmosphere at the Earth's equator and the cold air at the North Pole. But Arctic temperatures have been rising, twice as fast as temperatures over the rest of the globe. And some recent studies have found an association between a wavier jet stream and those rising temperatures. So did a warmer Arctic set the stage for Sandy to turn? But there is one undeniable factor that does relate directly to global warming and contributed to Sandy's destructiveness. Sea level. The water in the ocean is warmer than it used to be, and warm water takes up more volume. Warmer seas are higher seas. Add to this melting ice at the poles.
What we do know is that as the climate warms, the sea level will rise. It's already risen around a foot in the last 100 years in the New York area. We don't know exactly how fast the sea level will rise, but we know for certain that it will rise. It could be as much as several feet in the next century.
And that means decades from now, a storm like Sandy would be even more devastating.
As you raise those average sea levels, it's like raising the floor of a basketball court. If you don't change the height of the rims, you're going to get more slam dunks just because that average sea level has gotten higher.
This will force coastal cities all over the world to consider hardening their infrastructure.
The increase in the global population, with its need for land and shelter, energy, food, mobility, communications, and security, has generated the highest levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, exceeding 400 parts per million, not experienced since before humans were on this planet. The primary causes of this increase are global deforestation, industrial production, electric generating plants, older energy inefficient buildings, and motor vehicles. Increasing levels of CO2 will continue to heat the waters of the planet, intensifying global climate changes and increasing sea levels. As the polar ice caps melt into the ocean, particularly in the Antarctic, scientists from Rutgers University have projected a sea level rise on our coast ranging from 1.1 to 2.3 feet by the year 2050, with 2.5 to 5.9 feet by the year 2099. 67% of participants in the 2014 Rutgers Post-Sandy survey believe that these sea level increases are as accurate as can be predicted at this time. Only 18% want to wait and see, but still 15% don't believe these projected ranges. For is clear that sea level rise will happen, and we must be prepared for it. It is interesting to note that 61% believe that it is likely or somewhat likely that another storm like Sandy will happen within the next 10 years. A whopping 90% believe that it is very likely or somewhat likely that there will be another storm like Sandy in the next 100 years. Imagine the oceans 5.9 feet higher than today, with more intensive surges than Sandy. Sometime in this child's lifetime, this is going to happen. What do you believe? Sayreville, New Jersey, is located on the edge of the Raritan River, which flows into the Atlantic Ocean. The low-lying areas of the town have experienced repeated flooding because many units have been built in the 100-year floodplain, shown in green on this map. Additional areas, shown in blue, will become vulnerable in the future in the absence of protective measures. These images of Weber Avenue were captured on October 2012, 2 days after Sandy, as the water was receding. The flood water level at these images was at plus 9 feet above mean high tide. During Sandy, the flood waters continued to increase, reaching levels at 12.5 feet above mean high tide, as shown in this sequential GIS graphics prepared by Rutgers University. Seemingly normal, 7 months later, one had only to look more closely at the houses and talk to residents to see the extent of the damages.
You know, we had all this cleaned down, and what happened was, since it rains, the dirt just goes right in.
Tell me, how high did the water come?
Well, actually, the water was, you could kind of see, it was almost up to the window going all the way around.
Okay.
That's how high the water was.
And when did the basement collapse?
The same day that the storm came through. And as you could see, all the walls are cracked, so we really don't know the structural, how, you know, even to repair this, all 4 sides are actually cracked. But everything is like a disaster. You know, she had beautiful hardwood floors, they're all buckled. Even here, everything had to be torn because this is how high the water was.
An analysis by Rutgers University of the projected flood levels and potential damage assessment of the 10-year, 100-year, and 500-year floodplain revealed the following. That the 10-year floodplain with 4.5 feet of water would impact 118 parcels at an estimated value loss of $21,213,000. The 100-year floodplain at 13.5 feet of water would impact 1,868 parcels with an estimated value loss of $172,428,000. At the 500-year floodplain level, at 16.5 feet of water, 2,316 parcels will be impacted, with an estimated 2013 cost of a staggering $258 million. Based on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers prediction, there is a high level of probability that future flooding with sea level rise will reach the 500-year flood level, or 16.5 feet above mean high tide. This does not include protection for sea level rise, which is estimated to be around 21 feet, the height of the projected berm. To respond to the inevitable future flooding, 4 potential resilient scenarios are possible for Sayreville. The first is to buy out all units with serious damage when the owners agree, and let the land return back to the floodplain. In this scenario, natural succession will occur if there is no intervention. This will probably be the most expensive alternative. But it is important to recognize that the current buyout plan only buys out 200 units of the 2,000 units, only a small fraction of the total number of vulnerable units. The second is a combination of buyout of some units, elevation of others, with some remaining on grade. Whereas many property owners currently opted for the buyout, others are elevating their structures. Still others without a mortgage and do not need flood insurance will gamble and stay at grade. This is currently happening because there is no overall plan. This scenario will generate a strange pattern of land uses that will still require basic services to be available and ongoing, and more so when the next storm occurs. The Rutgers post-Sandy survey revealed that only 9% prefer the buyout option. When shown images of this scenario, 24% think that this scenario is negative and inappropriate, whereas 58% think it is positive and appropriate vision. Currently, this individual lot-by-lot approach is the only option available. Relocation is a difficult decision. The third scenario is to construct a levee berm parallel with Weber Avenue that would protect the remaining 2,000 plus units that are in imminent danger of future flooding and that haven't been bought out or elevated. This was first proposed by the U.S. Corps of Engineers many years back, but proved to be too expensive with other urban areas having greater priority for the limited federal funds. As more buildings are bought out and elevated, the cost-benefit ratio decreases. Nonetheless, over 2,000 units remain vulnerable without a berm. This simulation of a berm levee in the Rutgers post-Sandy survey received a 67% positive and appropriate rating. A fourth alternative recommends a curvilinear berm and floodgate to respond to a more natural character of the site and responds to the empty lots where units have been bought out and elevated. The berm and floodgate across the South River could be constructed at no cost to Sayreville, the state of New Jersey, or the federal government. The only requirement would be to expedite the regulatory process and adopt the necessary zoning. The concept is simple. Allow a new borough-centered neighborhood to be built on 29 acres of the existing underutilized 39.3 acres Memorial Park, which is located at the edge of the existing downtown. The sales value of the land for development would finance the berm, floodgate, and the construction of over 230 acres of a large estuary park, which would not only replace and enhance the existing recreation facilities, but vastly expand the offerings and create a central New Jersey habitat preserve. The existing buildings are shown in red, the proposed new buildings in white with their green roofs. The new public park is shown in the background. The new town center neighborhood would provide Sayreville with a traditional, walkable, green, mixed-use town center with a wide range of housing types, public parks and plazas, incorporating places for people to live, work, and play. From the Rutgers survey, 83% thought that this was a positive and appropriate idea. Only 5% did not. Furthermore, the berm would protect over 2,000 units from future storms, not requiring property owners to pay flood insurance, and most important, eliminating the potential of over $250 million in damages in the future. Of the 4 concepts developed, the survey suggests that the fourth alternative of a privately financed berm, new park, and new town center is the most desirable, with an 83% positive rating. Will Sayreville settle for scenario 2, with its partial buyout using existing available federal money, with some of the units elevated and others remaining on grade? Is Sayreville ignoring sea level rise and gambling on the timing and potential devastating impact of the next major storm? Can the government buy out all these units after future floods? Or will Sayreville move to protect over 2,000 units by adopting a plan and zoning for a new borough-centered neighborhood, a flood berm and estuary park envisioned in scenario 4? Only time will tell. Our second case study is the borough of Highlands in Monmouth County, New Jersey. It is situated on the Shrewsbury River, adjacent to Sandy Hook Bay and State Park. The town for years has been known as a clamor town, with small-scale cottage-like units and narrow streets. Our study area focused on a low-lying portion of the Highlands that has been subject to repetitive flooding. Sandy imparted serious damage to Bay Avenue, the location of the municipal building, and the retail area, which today is still mostly vacant. The Bay Avenue commercial corridor has been struggling for years, for reasons other than flooding. The reality is that it is the wrong location for a main street, and will always struggle, even without flooding. To give you some idea of the depth of the flooding, Bay Avenue is at the approximate elevation of +3. These GIS maps show the progression of flooding at 3 feet above mean high tide, 4.5 feet and 10.5 feet, and then 18 feet, which is the expected height of the flooding with the sea level rise by year 2050. The reoccurring flooding and potential future storms provides an extraordinary opportunity for design and image transformation of the borough. For Highlands, like Sayreville, the U.S. Corps of Engineers proposed a seawall and dune combination to protect the community. There is little community support for this option, which would add a minimum of 5 feet more to the height of the wall shown here. Based on the Rutgers post-Sandy visual survey, 60% told us that a steel bulkhead was unacceptable and negative. It received a -3.7 on a +10 to -10 scale. This proposed seawall continues to lose support as more and more residents elevate their structures. Elevation is the only option available. As more units are elevated, the cost-benefit ratio for the seawall dune decreases, generating an optimum planning solution, which is to raise all existing salvageable and new structures using an urban design that will create a beautiful, resilient community in the future. To generate this infill plan for Highlands, it was critical to complete a careful analysis and documentation of every property in our assigned study area. The first map located properties deemed an imminent hazard. The second map located parcels that are currently vacant. The third map located parcels that met 2 or more of the criteria for possible infill and or redevelopment. And finally, the fourth combined all of these to illustrate 133 parcels, shown in red, that are highly susceptible for infill and redevelopment. Once determined, the urban design question was, what type of future land use, elevated and flood-protected structures, and streetscapes should be proposed? After much discussion, one abstract sketch land use concept emerged that would maintain the borough's primary character, preparing this portion of the borough for a more resilient future and to create a new image of place. The fundamental ideas in this concept are as follows. 1. Focusing the new commercial areas, shown in red, at the intersection of Bay and Miller and along the waterfront. 2. Focusing design attention on Miller as a primary access way to the water. Miller was deemed as the street with the most potential for new elevated infill buildings. These are shown in orange. 3. Plan and design mixed-use parking areas, shown in purple, which are a short walking distance from everywhere in the study area to accommodate present and future parking needs, particularly overflow. This area would also incorporate a new borough hall. 4. Design new streetscapes with an emphasis upon the pedestrian, bicycle lanes, and a summer trolley connecting the parking to the water's edge. The shared streets, shown in green, would eliminate curbs and limit on-street parking by encouraging off-street parking under the elevated structures or in the community parking lots. 5. In the areas in yellow, encourage as many elevated single-family structures as possible. 6. Put a strong design emphasis on the waterfront, including a possible new marina and expanded public beach, by extending Shrewsbury to Valley and then onto Cedar, near the Sandy Hook fishing adventures. 7. Recommending that North Street be converted to a unique boardwalk street, with vehicular access provided from adjacent streets. To help guide the proposed physical character and the revitalized and resilient Highlands, a design vocabulary was developed using the results of the Rutgers post-Sandy survey. One of the primary examples revealed that 75% of participants gave this simulation of future architectural character a positive and appropriate response, with a value of plus 4.2. It contains many of the architectural elements that were incorporated into the overall planning and urban design recommendations. The sketch concept plan was then translated into a more robust urban design plan. The plan requires new structures to be elevated while maintaining the more beach shore character in the use of materials, roof lines, windows, and stairs. The proposed elevated mixed-use retail at the intersections of Bay and Miller is shown in red. The primary retail frontage is located on the second level, while maintaining a ground-level street character. Orange are the locations for a range of attached beach houses and condo units. Yellow are single-family and single-family attached. Of particular interest is the enhancement of the waterfront with the proposed 400-boat marina, a new walkway marina front with temporary retail, a new inn, and an expanded public beach. Those people owning the deep lot properties for the extension of Shrewsbury with the proposed marina and other infill buildings would accrue the highest and largest value and return if this was ever developed. The plan provides the opportunity for the transformation of this portion of the borough with 393 new residential units, 124,000 square feet of retail, a new 400 boat marina with 53,000 square foot water edge inn, 2,010 parking spaces, new landscape pedestrian and bicycle priority streets, and an emphasis upon green infrastructure. In addition, 283 new permanent jobs are estimated to be created. This SketchUp model illustrates all the existing buildings in purple shade and the new buildings in white, many with green roofs. Implementation of the proposed plan and zoning could mean the rebirth and enhancement of this area of Highlands, with protection from future devastating storms and surges. Is this plan worth considering? Only time will tell. The third municipality that was included in the project was Sea Bright. Sea Bright is a barrier island located between the ocean and the Shrewsbury River. Hurricanes are not new to Sea Bright. It has historically been susceptible to severe and recurrent coastal storm damage. During Sandy, the town flooded from the ocean and from the river. In 2013, half of the buildings in Sea Bright were in a special hazard zone. During Sandy, almost every building in Sea Bright was impacted. A Rutgers planning studio in the spring of 2013 put forth several recommendations for land use and zoning, housing, economic development, and mobility. One of these recommendations was elevating structures and allowing attached housing and mixed use in the downtown district. For this municipality, we focused on Beach Street, seen in this image from August 2013. A series of simulations and existing conditions were tested in the Rutgers Post-Sandy Visual Preference Survey. This image, taken a few days after the storm, received a 69% negative rating, with a mean value of minus 4.1. The storm had a devastating impact on Beach Street. 59% gave this existing seawall a positive value, with a mean value of plus 2.7. Unfortunately, Sea Bright is a barrier island and too small to afford protection by walls extending along its sea and river edges. Focusing on Beach Street, some months after the storm, 62% gave it a positive rating, with a mean value of a plus 2.5. Many people liked this street as it was, so typical of housing on the barrier islands along the Jersey Shore. However, it cannot remain the way it was, so elevation or removal are the only options. When many of the structures are elevated, 82% gave this street a positive response, with a mean value of a plus 4.75. When all structures were elevated, with architectural emphasis on the porches and stairs, 84% gave the street a positive response, with a mean value of plus 5.9. We wanted to understand what the response would be if several small lots were combined to create a multifamily structure. It received a 78% positive rating, with a mean value of 4.4. When we designed and simulated a shared street that removes the asphalt curbs and the narrow sidewalks, and substituted cobblestone, 74% gave it a positive response, with a mean value of 4.8. Several images tested the idea of converting some of the streets to boardwalk streets, primarily for pedestrians, bicycles, and beach vegetation, with access and parking from adjacent streets. This example uses Fire Island as its prototype. Much to our surprise, all of these images received positive scores. This image received the highest positive score in the survey with 83% positive response and a mean value of 4.9. Clearly, the introduction of a boardwalk is a change that should be considered. When we returned in May 2014, most of the buildings on the street had been elevated or in the process of being elevated. Clearly, this demonstrates that people still want to live on this barrier island near the ocean. Elevation of structures is the methods to prepare for the next storm and future sea level rise. Sea Bright could distinguish itself by creating several shared and boardwalk streets to enhance its character, value, and appeal. Is this plan worth considering? Only time will tell. Sandy was a regional wake-up call as our Earth responds to changes. Storms will be more powerful and more dangerous for coastal cities and towns in the future. Our inability to curb greenhouse gases, combined with the lack of a workable regional planning and financing framework, magnified by the state's inability to adopt long-term policies, practices, and implementation, have left few equitable options for individual property owners and municipalities. Multiple alternatives were generated as part of the planning process for the 3 towns included in this grant. As compelling, cost-effective, and resilient as these alternatives are, each town opted for the most expedient and short-term solutions that could be accomplished by individual actions with minimum or no planning by the municipality. Their solution? Elevate, or in some locations, buy out. These are the primary actions that can be funded by the limited state and federal money. New Jersey is preparing for the future the best it can, and gambling that the next storm will not be as severe, that the sea levels will not exceed the current projected heights, and that the next storm will not happen for a long time. But is it enough? Clearly, the federal and state governments have limited funding and other priorities. Could the private market, with more innovative planning, play a larger role to better prepare us? But in order for this to happen, municipalities must be open to these options and make the necessary planning and zoning changes. If the primary option is to elevate, then by adopting a new urban design master plan and ordinance that elevates all new and existing structures and rethinks the street types, a new typology, image, and resilience could emerge. But will it? Only time will tell.